Good evening, one and all. We welcome you all to the international webinar series on holistic health, well-being, and sustainable development 2022-2023, commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 76 years of independence, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030 as part of awareness and campaigns in collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute Center for Art, Sciences and Wellbeing. Before we start our sessions today, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
Kurutvam kalyanam आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
With the blessings of Almighty, we shall continue with today's commemoration. December 1st is commemorated as World AIDS Day. So every year on 1st December, the world commemorates World AIDS Day. People around the world unite to show support for people living with and affected by HIV and to remember those who have lost their lives to AIDS. So the world can end AIDS with communities leading the way. Organizations of communities living with at risk of or affected by HIV are the front line of progress in the HIV response. Communities connect people with person-centered public health services, but build trust, innovate, monitor implementation of policies and services, and hold providers accountable. But communities are being held back in their leadership. Funding shortages, policy and regulatory hurdles, capacity constraints, and crackdowns on civil society on the human rights of marginalized communities are obstructing the progress of HIV prevention and treatment services. If these obstacles are removed, community-led organizations can add even greater impetus to the global HIV response, advancing progress towards the end of AIDS. This World's AIDS Day is more than a celebration of the achievements of communities. It is a call to action to enable, support communities in their leadership roles. Over the years, a detailed understanding of the HIV epidemic has emerged through the collection, analysis, and dissemination of data, helping programs to reach the right people in the right place and at the right time. Having high-quality data on the AIDS response has enabled ambitious, measurable, and time-bound targets to be set for tracking progress and ensuring accountability. In report, Let Communities Lead by UNAIDS reveals that the world can end AIDS as a public health threat by 2030, but only if communities are fully included and are sufficiently funded to lead the way. It highlights how underfunding and harmful barriers are holding back their life saving work and obstructing the end of the AIDS. As we have seen, World AIDS Day is being celebrated around the world on December 1st each year. It has become one of the most recognized international health days and a key opportunity to raise awareness, commemorate those who have passed on, and celebrate victories such as increased access to treatment and prevention service. UNAIDS took the lead on campaigning for World's AIDS Day from its creation until 2004. From 2004 onwards, the World AIDS Campaign Global Steering Committee began selecting a theme for World AIDS Day in consultation with civil society, organizations, and government agencies involved in the AIDS response. Themes run for 1 or 2 years and are not just specific to World AIDS Day. Campaigning slogans such as Stop AIDS, Keep the Promise have been used for year-round to hold governments accountable for their HIV and AIDS-related commitments. So let communities lead is the theme for World AIDS Day 2023. The world can end AIDS with communities leading the way. Organizations of communities living with, at risk, or affected by HIV are the front line of progress in the HIV response. Communities connect people with person centered public health services, build trust, innovate, monitor implementation of policies and services, and hold providers accountable. But communities are being held back in their leadership, funding shortages, policy and regulatory hurdles, capacity constraints, and crackdowns on civil society and on the human rights of marginalized communities are obstructing the progress of HIV prevention and treatment services. If these obstacles are removed, community led organizations can add even greater impetus to the global HIV response, advancing progress towards the end of AIDS. This World's AIDS Day is more than a celebration of the achievements of communities. It is a call to action to enable and support communities in their leadership roles. World AIDS Day 2023 will highlight that to unleash the full potential of community leadership to enable the end of the AIDS, communities' leadership roles needs to be made core in all HIV plans and programs and in their formulation, budgeting, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. Nothing about us without us. So communities' leadership roles needs to be fully and reliably funded to enable the required scale up and be properly supported and remunerated. Not ending AIDS is more expansive than ending it. Barriers to communities' leadership roles needs to be removed and enabling regulatory environment is needed, which facilitates communities' role in provision of HIV services, ensuring civil society space and protects the human rights of all, including marginalized communities, to advance the global HIV response, remove laws that harm, create laws that empower. Communities are leading World's AIDS Day and across the world are shaping the events and tailoring the detailed calls to their specific needs. Through photos and videos shared by groups on social media and aggregated by the UN AIDS, People will be able to witness the kaleidoscope of events taking place, be inspired by the determination and hope, and hear communities' calls for action. Adaptable materials for World Site Day will be shared on UNAIDS special World AIDS Day page beginning in November to highlight the narrative continuation with the campaign materials. Color scheme and fonts are similar and echo those which are used in July in the path that ends AIDS. The imagery is also similar to and echoes the design concept used in the path that ends AIDS with important shifts, including that to highlight communities' leadership role, the angle has moved from looking from above people to looking up at them and more face on. And these are also tailorable by countries and communities because change depends on a moment, but a movement. The message, let's communities lead, will not only ring out on one day, it will be at the core of activities that will build up across November. See the release of the World's AIDS Day report entitled Let Communities Lead in late November, reach a crescendo on World AIDS Day on 1st December and continue to echo throughout December and beyond. The end of AIDS is possible. It is within our grasp, says UNAIDS Executive Director Winnie Baimin. To follow the path that ends AIDS, the world needs to be let communities led. Let's watch few videos. Okay, for time being, we'll skip the videos. We'll see it later.
My name is Lihle and I'm a young person living with HIV. When I first found out my status, I was so scared of what people thought of me. You know, walking into a clinic can be such a scary thing sometimes.
Lihle boy. You children of today, I don't know what you want really in life.
So I have to go.
You go where?
I have to go to check my brother.
This is what's going to give our young people courage to not be afraid of this disease, to not be defined by this disease.
I felt judged and disrespected.
There was no privacy involved.
Receptionist started mocking me. Saying after counseling.
Through this journey, I know I will succeed. I am here to bring hope to those who are feeling lost. Remember, you are not alone.
The goal is to end the AIDS epidemic by 2030.
Fears over how the AIDS virus is spread.
Back in the early 1980s, HIV infection was often seen as a death sentence. By 2000, more than 28 million people were living with HIV, but only 1 in 50 received antiretroviral medicines. Overall, 35 million people have died and 76 million have become infected. But today, the scales have tipped. Yearly, AIDS-related deaths have almost halved since 2005. More than 50% of people living with HIV have access to treatment. And a person living with HIV who starts treatment today has the same life expectancy as someone who is free of HIV infection. Pressure from the global AIDS movement has made medicines affordable in almost every country. $75 will cover an adult for an entire year. But there is still much work to do. 17 million people living with HIV still don't have access to treatment. Young women in sub-Saharan Africa are especially at risk. Their rate of new HIV infections is 44% higher than among young men. AIDS-related deaths have risen in the Middle East, North Africa, and also in Central Asia and Eastern Europe, where people who inject drugs account for nearly half of new infections. AIDS is not over, but it can be. UNAIDS, leading the global effort to end AIDS as a public health threat by 2030.
Do you believe in us? I think we'll figure it out. Hey, come with me, I'll show you the way out. This is the way out.
When we look at the data across the world by UNAIDS, AIDS by the numbers, when we look at the latest data on HIV, 1.3 million people were newly infected with HIV in 2022, and 39 million people were living with HIV in 2022. And 630,000 people died of AIDS-related illness in 2022. So the Joint United Nations Program on HIV/AIDS, in short known as UNAIDS, unites efforts of 11 UN organizations, including UNHCR, UNICEF, WFP, UNDP, UNFPA, UNODC, UN Women, ILO, UNESCO, World Health Organization, and the World Bank. UNAIDS is the leading global effort to end AIDS as a public health threat by 2030 as part of Sustainable Development Goals. Since the first cases of HIV were reported more than 35 years ago, 78 million people have become infected with HIV and 35 million have died from AIDS-related illness. Since it started operation in 1996, UNAIDS has led and inspired global, regional, national, and local leadership, innovation, and partnership to ultimately consign HIV to history. UNAIDS is a problem solver. It places people living with HIV and people affected by the virus at the decision-making table and at the center of designing, delivering, and monitoring the AIDS response. It's chart paths for countries and communities to get on the fast track to ending AIDS and is a bold advocate for addressing the legal and policy barriers to the AIDS response. UNAIDS provides the strategic direction, advocacy, coordination, and technical support needed to catalyze and connect leadership from governments, the private sector, and communities to deliver life-saving HIV services. Without UNAIDS, there would be no strategic vision for the AIDS response. UNAIDS generates strategic information and analysis that increases the understanding of the state of AIDS epidemic and progress, made at the local, national, regional, and global levels. It leads the world's most extensive data collection on HIV epidemiology, program coverage, and finance, and publishes the most authoritative and up-to-date information on HIV epidemic, vital for an effective AIDS response. UNAIDS produces data for impact. No major report, speech, or policy initiative on HIV has been launched or made without referring to data collected and released by UNAIDS. UNAIDS is a model for United Nations reform that is the only co-sponsored joint program in the United Nations system. It draws on the experience of 11 United Nations system co-sponsors and is the only United Nations entity with civil society represented on its governing body. UNAIDS has helped to position, shape, and scale up the response to HIV like no other organization, encouraging dialogue and bringing in communities that have been left out of decision making. Without UNAIDS, the human rights of people living with HIV would have been held back, and the voice of civil society would be heard far less often. UNAIDS have been transformed policy. UNAIDS have shaped public policy on HIV at the global, regional, and national levels. It has mobilized investments for sound national policy using evidence, experience, and political advocacy, built health community systems, established legal frameworks, and shaped public opinion towards creating healthy and resilient societies. The UNAIDS Secretariat has offices in 70 countries with 70% of its staff based in the field and has a budget of US dollars 140 million for the 2018. The budget for the joint program for 2018 is US dollars 242 million. So UNAIDS has a vision of zero new HIV infections, zero discrimination, and zero AIDS-related deaths, and the principle of leaving no one behind. In 2016, United Nations member states came together at the United Nations General Assembly for the high-level meeting on ending AIDS. In a historic agreement, they agreed to end AIDS as a public health threat by 2030 through meeting a series of fast-track commitments. UNAIDS is working with countries to meet those commitments which are enshrined in 2016. United Nations Political Declaration on Ending AIDS, realizing the shared goal of ending AIDS by 2030, will take a collaborative effort among the countries, people living with HIV, civil society, and others. Central to the fast-track commitments are three overarching fast-track targets: reducing new HIV infections to fewer than 5 lakhs by 2020, reducing AIDS-related deaths to fewer than 5 lakhs by 2020, eliminating HIV-related stigma and discrimination by 2020. So treatment for all 90-90-90. That is, UNAIDS is working towards ensuring that by 2020, 30 million people have access to the treatment through meeting the 90-90-90 targets, whereby 90% of the people living with HIV know their HIV status, 90% of the people who know their HIV positive status are accessing treatment, and 90% of the people on treatment have suppressed viral loads. Since UNAIDS launched the 90-90-90 initiative in 2014, it has advocated for a range of actions to achieve the targets: stepping up HIV testing centers worldwide, bringing down the cost of antiretroviral therapy so limited resources can go further, and brokering deals to bring down the price of viral load test. More and more countries are getting on the fast track, and with more than half of all people living with HIV, 20.9 million people now on treatment. At the end of 2016, the number of people living with HIV stood at 36.7 million, with 90-90-90 targets standing at 70% of the people living with HIV knowing their HIV status, 77% of the people who knew their HIV positive status accessing treatment, and 82% of people on treatment having suppressed viral loads. UNAIDS working with the United States President Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR, and other partners through the Start Free, Stay Free, AIDS Free framework is building on the tremendous progress achieved under the global plan towards the elimination of new HIV infections among children by 2015 and keeping their mothers alive, as per global plan, which saw 60% fewer children newly infected with HIV in the 21 global plan priority countries in just 6 years. Under the political declaration commitments by 2018, 1.6 million children should have access to HIV treatment, And by 2020, the new HIV infections among children should be eliminated. UNAIDS support to start free, stay free, AIDS free is focused on helping the world build towards the ambitious shared goal of ending AIDS among children. Through a super fast track approach, children, adolescents, young men, and women will access HIV prevention treatment, care, and support services, bringing the world one step closer to an AIDS free generation. UNAIDS have worked towards protecting and promoting human rights since its inception. UNAIDS has stood up for and amplified the voices of most marginalized and their human rights defenders when HIV-related rights have been denied or threatened. It has harnessed the power of United Nations to promote stronger leadership and accountability for ending all forms of violence, discrimination, and exclusion in the context of HIV. UNAIDS have advocated for the removal of travel restrictions on people living with HIV, with the list of countries with travel restrictions decreasing from 59 in 2008 to 35 in 2015. When we look at the global HIV and AIDS statistics, 39 million, that is 33.1 million to 45.7 million people globally were living with HIV in 2022. 1.3 million, that is around 1 million to 1.7 million people became newly infected with HIV in 2022. 6,30,000, that is anywhere between 4,80,000 to 8,80,000 people died from AIDS-related illness in 2022. 29.8 million people were accessing antiretroviral therapy in 2022. 85.6 million average, that is anywhere between 64.8 million to 113 million people have become infected with HIV, and 40.4 million of average, that is 32.9 million to 51.3 million people have died from AIDS-related illness since the start of epidemic. People living with HIV in 2022, there were 39 million, average 33.1 million to 45.7 million people living with HIV, and 37.5 million as average, in between 31.8 million to 43.6 million adults 15 years or older. When coming to children 0 to 14 years, 1.5 million is averaged, between 1.2 million to 2.1 million children. 53% of all people living with HIV were women and girls. 86%, anywhere between 73 to 98% of all people living with HIV knew their HIV status in 2022. People living with HIV accessing antiretroviral therapy at the end of December 2022, 29.8 million people. That is 76% average, and 65 to 89% of all people living with HIV were accessing antiretroviral therapy, up from 7.7 million in 2010. So 77% of adults aged 15 years and older had access to treatment. However, just 57% of children aged 0 to 14 years had access. 82% of women aged 15 years and older had access to treatment. However, just 72% of men aged 15 years and older had access. 82% of pregnant women living with HIV had access to antiretroviral medicines to prevent transmission of HIV to their child in 2022. 9.2 million people living with HIV did not have access to antiretroviral treatment in 2022. Coming to new HIV infections, have reduced by 59% since the peak in 1995. In 2022, 1.3 million people were newly infected with HIV compared to 3.2 million people in 1995. Women and girls accounted for 46% of all new infections in 2022. Since 2010, new infections have declined by 38% from 2.1 million to 1.3 million in 2022. Since 2010, new infections among children have declined by 58% from 3,10,000 in 2010 to 1,30,000 in 2022. Coming to AIDS-related deaths have been reduced by 69% since the peak in 2004 and by 51% since 2010. In 2022, around 6,30,000 people died from AIDS-related illness worldwide compared to 2.02 million people in 2004 and 1.3 million people in 2010. AIDS-related mortality has declined by 55% among men and girls, by 47% among men and boys since 2010. Globally, 46% of all new HIV infections were among women and girls in 2022. In sub-Saharan Africa, adolescent girls and young women accounted for more than 77% of new infections among young people aged 15 to 24 years in 2022. In sub-Saharan Africa, adolescent girls and young women aged 15 to 24 were more than 3 times as likely to acquire HIV than their male peers in 2022. Every week, 4,000 adolescent girls and young women aged 15 to 24 years became infected with HIV globally. In 2022, 3,100 of these infections occurred in sub-Saharan Africa. Only about 42% of the districts with high HIV incidence in sub-Saharan Africa has dedicated HIV prevention program for adolescent girls and young women in 2021. Globally, median HIV prevalence among the adult population aged 15 to 49 was 0.7%. However, median prevalence was higher among key populations, 2.5% among sex workers, 7.5% among gay men and other men who have sex with men, 5% among people who inject drugs, 10.3% among transgender persons, 1.4% among people in prisons. In 2022, 86% of all people living with HIV knew their HIV status. Among people who knew their status were accessing health treatment. Five countries, Botswana, Eswatini, Rwanda, and the United Republic of Tanzania and Zimbabwe, has achieved the target 95, 95, 95 by 2020. The old saying, what gets measured gets done, may be the cliche, but it is still very true for the response to HIV. Over the years, a detailed understanding of HIV epidemic has emerged through the collection, analysis, and dissemination of data, helping programs to reach the right people in the right place at the right time. Having high-quality data on AIDS response has enabled ambitious, measurable, and time-bound targets to set for tracking progress and ensuring accountability. UNAIDS leads the world's most extensive data collection on HIV epidemiology. Program covered and finance and publishes the most authoritative and up-to-date information on HIV epidemic. Under a mandate from the United Nations General Assembly, UNAIDS works with all countries to collect and analyze data on their AIDS responses and to have With concrete targets to be met on the way to ending AIDS epidemic by 2030, it is vital to have data tracking whether world is on the course to meeting the commitments made in the 2016 United Nations Political Declaration on Ending AIDS. Today, we are also commemorating International Day for the Abolition of Slavery on 2nd December every year. An estimated 50 million people are in modern slavery, including 28 million in forced labor and 22 million in forced marriage. Almost 1 in 8 of all those in forced labor are children. More than half of these children are in commercial sexual exploitation. Most cases of forced labor, 86%, are found in private sector. Almost 4 out of 5 of those in forced commercial sexual exploitation are women or girls. Latest estimates by the International Labour Organizations, ILO, show that forced labor and forced marriages have increased significantly in the last 5 years. 10 million more people were in the modern slavery in 2021 compared to 2016 global estimates, bringing the total of 50 million worldwide. Women and children remain disproportionately vulnerable. Although modern slavery is not defined in law, it is used as an umbrella term covering practices such as forced labor, debt bondage, forced marriage, and human trafficking. Essentially, it refers to situations of exploitation that a person cannot refuse or leave because of threats, violence, coercion, deception, and or abuse of power. Modern slavery occurs in almost every country in the world and cuts across ethnic, cultural, and religious lines. More than half, 52% of all forced labor and a quarter of all forced marriages can be found in upper middle income or high income countries. ILO has adopted a legally binding protocol designed to strengthen global efforts to eliminate forced labor, which entered into force in November 2016.
$50 million people are in forced labor or forced marriage globally. These are men, women, and children who are forced to work or to marry because of threats, violence, deception, or abuse of power. An estimated 28 million people are in situations of forced labor, and a further 22 million people are in forced marriages. This is a significant increase over the last 5 years. Women and children are particularly vulnerable. More than 2/3 of those forced to marry are female, and almost 3/4 are younger than 15. Migrants are more likely to be in forced labor or to be trafficked than other groups. And more than 3 million children are in forced labor, half of them in commercial sexual exploitation. Modern slavery occurs in almost every country in the world. In fact, more than half of all forced labor occurs in upper middle or high-income countries. Entrapment in forced labor can last years, while in most cases, forced marriage is a life sentence. But it doesn't have to be this way. We know what needs to be done. With the right policies and action, we can all help end modern slavery. See what role you can play by checking out the latest global estimates of modern slavery.
So the global estimates of modern slavery, forced labor, and forced marriage report was produced through a collaboration between ILO, Walk Free, and the International Organization for Migration. It purposes a number of recommended actions which, taken together and swiftly, would mark significant progress towards ending modern slavery. They include improving and enforcing laws and labor inspections, ending state imposed forced labor, stronger measures to combat forced labor and trafficking in business and supply chains, extending social protection and strengthening legal protection, including raising the legal age of marriage to 18 without exception. Other measures include addressing the increased risk of trafficking and forced labor for migrant workers, promoting fair and ethical recruitment, and greater support for women, girls, and vulnerable individuals. The International Day for the Abolition of Slavery on 2nd December marks the date of the adoption by the General Assembly of the United Nations Convention for the Suppression of the Traffic in Persons and of the Exploitation of the Prostitution of Others via Resolution 317 of 4 of 2nd December 1949. The focus of this day is on eradicating contemporary forms of slavery, such as trafficking in persons, sexual exploitation, the worst forms of child labor, forced marriage, and the forced recruitment of children for use in armed conflict. Slavery has evolved and manifested itself in different ways throughout the history. Today, some traditional forms of slavery still persist. Slavery has evolved and manifested itself in different ways throughout the history. These forms of slavery are the result of long-standing discrimination against the most vulnerable groups in societies, such as those regarded as being of low caste, tribal minorities, and indigenous people. Alongside traditional forms of forced labor, such as bonded labor and debt bondage, and there now exist more contemporary forms of forced labor, such as migrant workers who have been trafficked for economic exploitation of every kind in the world economy, work in domestic globally, 1 in 10 children works. The majority of the child labor that occurs today is for economic exploitation. That goes against the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which recognizes the right of the child to be protected from economic exploitation and from performing any work that is likely to be hazardous or to interfere with the child's education or to be harmful to the child's health or physical, mental, spiritual, moral, or social development. According to the protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children, trafficking in persons means the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons by means of the thereof, of the threat or use of force or other forms of coercion for the purpose of exploitation, journalists have a voice that many workers do not. They can shine a light on the abusive practices and the denial of fundamental human and labor rights. Training is provided along with advice to media professionals on how to report accurately and effectively on forced labor and their fair recruitment. It also includes the media friendly glossary on migration.
हलिया मुक्तिबाट यो हामीलाई तालिम दिलायो हाते कढाइको अनि त्यसमा हामीले 52 दिन तालिम गर्यौं लेभल 1 फेरि एक्जाम भयो हाम्रो एक्जामबाट पास भएर लेभल 2 पनि गर्यौं त्यो लेभल 1 सिक्ने बेला मेरो आमा बित्नु भएको थियो 10 दिनसम्म त गएन म त्यसपछि विस्तार विस्तार गर्दा गर्दा कोर्स ह्यान्डल गरिहाल्थे अरु परीक्षा लिने अर्कै आएको थियो त्यहीँबाट आएको थियो सिटिबिटीबाट तिनीहरूले नै लिएको थियो अनि हाम्रो 3 घण्टाको मात्रै थियो त्यो पेपर पनि पेपर क्वेशन आएको थियो फेरि हामीले आफैले त्यो चित्र कोरेर अनि त्यसमा हामीले पुरा जो डिजाइन सोचेको थियो त्यो हाल्नु पर्थ्यो त्यसमा कोर्सलाई कम्प्लिट गरेर पास गरिहाल्थे परीक्षामा अनि अब यो घरमा गरेर त यसको प्रचार हुँदैन फेरि त्यो बजारमा सानो पसल त्यो भाडामा लिएर खोल्दिए आफ्नो यता सानो पुँजीबाट खोलेको थियो 9000 मात्रै लगानी लगाएर त्यो पसल त्यसपछि बढाउँदा बढाउँदा अब सबै चीज चाहिएपछि मैले यस्तो सहकारीहरुबाट लोन लिएर पछि त्यसमा बढाए अनि त्यसमा सिंगार हाले अनि त्यो बढ्दा 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 फेरि त्यहीबाट मैले भने अब यसको अलग्गै खोल्नु पर्छ यता अरूलाई पनि रोजगार दिनु पर्यो ठुलो व्यापार खोल्नु पर्छ भनेर त्यही भएर यहाँ यता शिफ्ट गरेको काम साम गरेपछि त्यो अब मार्केटिङ बढ्न थाल्यो मार्केटिङ बढेपछि यता इन्डियाको हुन्छ नि हाम्रो यहाँ 3 महिनाको मेला चल्छ हामी त्यसमा सेल गर्छौं यो बनाएको चुनरीहरु अनि यो घुम्टीहरु इन्डियनले यो पर्स त्यो लगेर जान्छन् हाम्रो यही कडाईको अनि त्यही सिंगार त्यही बेचेर फेरि त्यसैमा थप्दा अनि लोन लियो त्यसमा सामान आयो अनि त्यो बेच्यो तिर्यो अनि फेरि थप्यो त्यसमा यस्तो गर्दा गर्दै गरेछ अहिले 500 लाख पुगेको छ त्यो भन्दा पनि बढी होला कहिले 400 बचत गर्छु कहिले 500 कहिले 1000 पनि यस्तो बचत पनि गरिरहेछ हामीले यस्तो सहकारी संस्थामा खाता खोलेका छौं यसमा आउँछन् दैनिक बचत गर्छु यो ठाउँमा कोही छैन त्यस्तो कडाई गर्ने होला यसैलाई म विस्तृत रूपले यसै ठाउँलाई अगाडि बढाउँ भन्ने यस्तो सोच रहेछ मेरो 5 जना छन् अहिले मसँग यो रोजगारमा यता बनाउने वाला 25 जना सिक्थे त्यहीबाट राख्या हो यसमा पनि त्यही कडाई सिकेकाहरुलाई मात्रै राख्या छ अहिले बाहिरकोलाई त राख्या छैन कसैलाई जति त्यो बसिया छन् तिनीहरुलाई यही रोजगार दिएर यसैलाई बृहत रूपमा बनाएर यहीबाट म विश्वास आया छ खुसी छु म अलि बढ्दै छ सबैलाई रोजगार अनि व्यापार पनि बढ्दै छ गर्व लाग्छ किन लाग्दैन खोल्न पाए राम्रो भयो हामी
Today, we are also commemorating World Computer Literacy Day on December 2nd, annually instituted by NIIT in 2001. The holiday was created in the honor of company's 20th anniversary and was a way to increase computer literacy among people, especially women and children. Though computers have become commonplace in our futuristic world, World Computer Literacy Day reminds us to contribute our quota towards making computers accessible and easy to understand for those who may struggle without innovation. So it was launched by 2001 by an Indian company called NIIT to celebrate its 20th anniversary, founded by 1981 by Rajendra Singh Pawar and Vijay K. Tadani. NIIT, which stands for National Institute of Information Technology, is a skills and talent development company. World Computer Literacy Day was founded by the company in response to a study that revealed that men form the majority of computer users in the world. As a result, NIIT took up the cause to educate more women and children by equipping them with computer literacy skills. Since its inception in 1981, the company has spread to over 30 countries of the world. The history of the computer can be traced back to early 1820s when Charles Babbage designed the difference engine, a mechanical computer capable of performing simple calculations. Before the invention, people used all kinds of inventions to perform calculations using the abacus, Napier bones, Pascaline adding machine, and Leibniz wheel, and so on. However, what differentiated the difference engine from others before it was that it was driven by steam and could solve logarithm tables. Since then, computers have gone through various improvements and designs to become our laptops, phones, and desktop computers. In the past, computers could be so big as to occupy the length of a whole room. But thanks to the modern technology, we could hold all that scientific technology in the palm of our hands. In the United States, only 16% of the people are not computer literate. There are 3 levels of computer literacy: basic, the foundation level; intermediate, a step higher than the foundation level; and proficient, the highest level above the basic and intermediate levels. Switzerland, San Marino, Sweden, the United States, and Israel were the countries with the highest per capita rate of ownership of personal computers, have the highest rate of computer use. Support the cause of computer literacy by donating to a charity which will help more people to gain access to computers. Most of us probably don't need a reminder to pick up our computers, but today, go out of your way to use a computer, whether it's for sending an email or playing a video game. Put your computer to good use as a way to celebrate. First generation computers from 1946 to 1959 were invented and in use were bulky and relied on batch operating system, which was time consuming. Second generation computers in between 1959 and 1965 were smaller in size and consumed less power than first generation computers. However, they also used the batch processing system. Third generation computers utilized integrated circuits and operated time sharing, multi-programming, and remote processing systems in between 1965 to 1971. Fourth generation computers in between 1971 to 1980 used very large-scale integrated VLSI circuits and were faster, more affordable, and much smaller in size than previous generations. Fifth generation computers from 1981 to present use artificial intelligence and parallel processing hardware. Laptops, phones, and desktops are part of the fifth generation of the computers. So World Computer Literacy Day is important because it seeks to promote the cause of computer education. Though most parts of the world have been exposed to technology, a vast majority still needs education on the subject. World Computer Literacy Day is a celebration of computers and all things technological. It's an innovation that has single-handedly changed the course of the world. The day is also a reminder that many people still don't have access to computers, often due to factors such as poverty and underdevelopment. World Computer Literacy Day reminds us to open our hands in charity to provide access to others. Today is also commemorated as World Pollution Prevention Day, which is observed around the globe on December 2nd every year. With the eye-opening movements like Fridays for Future taking charge, the world today doesn't need many reminders to realize the consequences of climate change. However, it is important to note that each individual has a huge role in this fight against pollution. A clean environment cannot be achieved with the efforts of a selected few. Small acts such as planting a sapling, dumping garbage at the right place, recycling plastic items, etc., are the first steps to turning our planet into a sustainable place to live. So start today. This day is created to instill awareness on the environmental pollution and its negative impacts on our health and the planet. The most hazardous type of pollution that has taken the world by storm is plastic pollution. From degrading soil quality to killing marine life, plastic pollution will soon become a bane to our existence. International organizations such as United Nations, the World Health Organization, Greenpeace, and others have been urging countries all over the globe to take precautionary measures to control pollution. However, the responsibility does not lie only on our governments. Individuals must come forth to make every possible effort to reduce environmental pollution. Based on the research and various surveys, it has been estimated that air pollution is posing serious health problems for people worldwide, but it affects those in low and middle income countries the most. In fact, death rates due to air pollution have surged drastically in recent years. Owing to this concern, World Health Organization has imposed strict air quality norms for countries like India, Bangladesh, Qatar, Indonesia, Afghanistan, and Mongolia, to name a few. While most of us are aware of the preventive measures that we can take, we must also enlighten those who are ignorant. People must be familiarized with the fatal repercussions of pollution to make them realize the gravity of the situation. Besides, these measures can start right from our home. So, if you wish to create a sustainable future for your kids and your younger generation, don't delay and take action right now. Air pollution can severely affect your lungs and cause breathing issues. If not treated in time, it can even lead to fatal consequences. Pollution prevention is not one-man job. It requires collective efforts from every individual. You can start with simple acts like eliminating the use of plastic, choosing to walk short distance instead of driving, using eco-friendly materials like wood, cane, glass, not burning garbage, planting trees, and so on. It is definitely worse than you can imagine. Climate change is real. And as per a 2019 World Health Organization report, 99% of the world's population resided in places that didn't meet World Health Organization's air quality guidelines. If you are looking for a sustainable solution to pollution control, planting trees is what you need to do. It is an age-old method and the most effective. Go on, make your neighborhood green. Think twice before throwing away those plastic containers and bottles next time. As you know, plastic is non-biodegradable and poisonous to the environment. So instead, try to reuse or recycle them. Say no to plastic. Actually, why not stop using plastic altogether? Instead, opt for cloth bags, glass bottles, wooden or bamboo toothbrush, and fabric tissues to start with. 8 million tons of plastic waste goes into our oceans every year. In Africa, air pollution kills more people than poor sanitation and malnutrition. Currently, there are around 500 dead zones in the world where no living organism can live. Every year, 1 lakh marine animals lose their lives because of plastic pollution. China tops the list when it comes to carbon dioxide production in the world, and the US ranks second, largest carbon dioxide producers. Climate change is the most burning topic of the hour, and it's something to be dismissed. If we can't save the world single handedly, we can at least do our bit. Pollution is man made and it is killing marine organisms and animals on the land as much as it's killing humans. So it's high time we take charge and reduce, if not stop further deaths. Making a difference lies in our hands. As much as it sounds depressing, it's true that half of the world is damaged due to pollution. And this day reminds us to become more sensible and precautions to rescue ourselves from the mess we created. Today is also commemorated as International Sweater Festival, which is observed on second Friday after Thanksgiving, which falls on December 2nd. So December 1st this year. So whether you love or are completely indifferent to sweater vests, you cannot deny that the fashion staple is making a fashionable comeback. And this fashion forward day encourages people all over the world to wear a sweater vest and ask others to do the same. This is why we love this thought of celebrating International Sweater Festival Day. The whole point behind this idea is to connect with others, as there is no other garment that is worn by such diverse groups of people, from hipsters to older people, and to those looking to stay warm. The diverse piece of clothing was designed with functionality in mind, even as people thought it was a mistake. It was made for people indulging in sports to help them sweat and thus help them lose weight. Julia Felsenthal, then a staff writer at Slate magazine, wrote a history piece about the sweater vest, tracing this garment back to 1882. When rovers first wore these with one big difference, they were long sleeve. The piece does not indicate when the sleeves were chopped off to mimic the now popular style. But it is believed that the football players from Michigan abandoned these sleeves to breathe better while playing, and it has been a staple ever since. The humble garment then became a common sight by 1990s. Men everywhere wore it with pride. Soon enough, the sweater vest crossed the gender barrier too. Stars adopted this garment with excitement, namely the lead characters of Clueless, Herr Horowitz, and later Eleanor Roosevelt, who wore the sweater vest with her tweeds in 1934, creating another fashion statement. Its designers Dior, Givenchy, and Prada also put this garment on runways, cementing its place in popular imagination. The world wars brought other matters to the public eye, and the sweater vest lost its place for a little while. By the 1970s, the sweater vest was making inroads into fashion again, although in places like the UK. The sweater vest has been used by sports fans, especially those that enjoy golf and American football team coaches, for a long time. It has been remained a supplementary fashion icon ever since, except in the 21st century, when the spring-summer 2017 runway presented saw major designers such as Ralph Simons and Prada play with the sweater vest again. By 2020, the sweater vest was exploding all over the internet, with celebrities paying tribute to this garment and fashion houses swearing it is the next best thing. Today we are also commemorating National Fritters Day. Fritters are easy to cook and they exist in different forms in cuisines all over the world. They can be sweet or savory. They can be appetizer, dessert, or entry. The first recorded mention of the fritter was back in 1665. Samuel Pepys, a British member of parliament during the Restoration period in England, wrote in one of his diary entries that he would be enjoying some fritters before Lent. However, it is believed that fritters were first consumed by the ancient Romans, who later introduced them to Europe. Fritters are easy and cost-effective to make so that it comes as no surprise when there is a version in every culture. You can find fritters at restaurants, country fairs, and even on the street. The most famous fritters you can find in US are corn fritters. In South, traditional corn fritters are made of melted butter, milk, flour, and corn kernels. They can be baked, shallow fried, and deep fried and are served with cream, honey, fruit, or jam. You can add virtually any fruit or vegetable in these delicious fritters, making them a very versatile dish. So it's a celebration of culture. Fritter recipes range across cultures, and food is always a great way to connect National Fritters Day, which is commonality across cultures. It is versatile, whether savory or sweet, deep fried or pan fried. Big or small fritters come in many varieties. They can be a snack, appetizer, entry, or dessert. So there are so many ways to enjoy this. Anything that coated in batter and fried to brown, crispy goodness makes the most mouth-watering treat. Fritters are delicious. Today is also commemorated as National Bill Joy Day in US. It was created by Taylor Morrison, a premium American home builder and developer in 2017. The firm believes in cultivating joy along with designing suitable homes for its customers. The team at Taylor Morrison lights up the holiday season through their acts of kindness for people who need it the most. Their collective efforts have been so impactful that they have managed to touch hearts across the nation. Today is also commemorated as National Mud Day in US. Animal shelters are always looking for volunteers and you would make a great one. Check in with your local rescue to see how you can get involved. Chances are you have got plenty of mutts in your life. While every dog owner loves their pet, they would probably still appreciate a day off. Offer to dog sit for a friend. The ultimate way to celebrate this day, if you have been thinking about getting a dog, open up your heart to a mutt and you won't regret it. Adopt a mutt. So while all dogs at shelters need adopting, purebred dogs tend to have much better luck. So mutts often end up being left out to dry. It encourages adoption of mixed breed dogs. Most purebreds were bred for specific traits, so they are likely to have more extreme personality. Mutts, on the other hand, have a blend of traits from different sources, which often leads to more mellow mood. In fact, purebred dogs are more likely than mutts to have genetic disorders, including cataracts and hypothyroidism. With all dog breed combinations out there, there are nearly an infinite amount of possibilities. Just think about it this way: 4-digit combination locks have 10,000 combinations, and there are over 3,000 breeds of dog. You can try to do the math. Today is also commemorated as National Skip School Day in US, which is a great day for American teens. While you may have heard of surprise test, surprise holiday is a relatively new concept. There is no solid purpose behind this day. It resulted from a viral TikTok video that gained immense popularity among teens. As the story goes on, October 31st, 2019, TikTokers randomly started posting videos urging teens to ditch school on December 2. There is no clear evidence as to why they choose December 2 in particular. Like most things on the internet, these videos went viral in a matter of days. Accompanied by perky, confident background music, the videos began trending in 2nd December. The hashtag itself earned over 2 million views. One person even went to the extent of starting a change.org petition asking teens to support the trend. Although the petition didn't receive a huge response, with only about 3 dozen signatures, it was enough to make an entry into Urban Dictionary. Although it became a hit with high schoolers, school administrators are not keen on approving this as a holiday. Besides, bunking classes without informing teachers is considered truancy and can even lead to temporary rustication. So before you decide to take a break from classes, make sure you keep your school informed and be careful. And may the spend of productivity by searching for possible days. Spend quality time with your kid. This one is all for all the parents out there. If you support National Skip School Day, you might consider doing something fun or lazy with your kids. Watch TV, go for a ride, play video games, and sleep all day. These options are endless. Unlike most other holidays, National Skip School Day doesn't have any agenda behind it. It's the outcome of a TikTok video that went viral. So someone started a petition on change.org to support the National Skip School Day trend. So if the Google National Skip Day, you will find entry in Urban Dictionary. The concept of National Skip School Day could have been inspired by it. The tradition of skipping school has been there for years. Remember ditch day prior to day of senior prom? While skipping school frequently is not a good idea, taking one off doesn't do any harm. Who knows, it can be a help to prevent anxiety and burnout, a break from the monotony. No time to indulge in your hobbies? This day might allow you to do what you love for a whole day. Being idle can sometimes be wholesome, especially if your kid is drained after finishing endless assignments. This day is to regenerate and just chill out. Today is also commemorated as National Safety Razor Day in US. Celebrates the invention of revolutionary low-tech tool that changed the lives of many men across the globe. A safety razor is shaving implement with a protective device positioned between the edge of the blade and the skin to reduce the level of skill needed for injury-free shaving. It celebrates the centuries-old tool that has been at the center of lasting grooming tradition. This revolutionary low-tech tool has changed the lives of thousands of men and women across the globe. It continues to do so today, even in finer and smoother fashion, thanks to the advancements in technology and knowledge. A safety razor is a grooming tool with a protective device positioned between the edge of its blade and skin to reduce the level of skill needed for injury-free shaving. Also referred to as double-edged razors, safety razors were popularized in 20th century by King Camp Gillette. Before Gillette's design, several models existed. However, his innovation, disposable, thin, and importantly inexpensive, became the best-selling version, and it was considered to have revolutionized shaving at the time, because before them, most men were reliant on the barbers if they wanted to shave. Its invention and subsequent commercialization enabled men who didn't have deep pockets to still enjoy a clean shaven face when they wanted and as frequently as they liked. Although there's a small learning curve in terms of how to perfectly hold the blade to your skin, safety razors produce a far cleaner shave and are less likely to irritate the skin like cartridge razors. Because of this, they are considered to be a cut above the rest of as far as grooming is concerned. So when shaving with a safety razor, the sharpness of the blade is crucial. Safety razors are designed to work with gravity, allowing the weight of the head to pull down and shave as you glide it along your skin. The idea was to use the blade to slice through the bed like a sickle rather than to drag through the bed and scrape the blade across the skin. This means that you need to use the lightest touch possible so that blade glides across the surface. It all boils down to the sharpness of the blade. How frequently you should have shave depends on your style preferences, how fast your hair grows, the body part you are shaving, the cost and quality of blades, and how well you care for your skin. So the biggest differences is the blade itself. Safety razors have disposable blades, whereas straight razor blades need sharpening and maintenance. Although simple to use, safety razors can take a couple of weeks to get used to, and the technique for shaving with a safety razor differs from that of shaving with a regular plastic razor. Learn and understand this technique to observe safety razor. Safety razors are special in the sense that they represent a revolutionary new way to shave. Learn more about invention and evolution to observe the day. While blade technology may be similar, the head of women's razor is more rounded than men's razors. Cartridge razors and disposable razors with their blades embedded in plastics have become the most widely used type of safety razors. The basic form of a razor was first described in a patient application by William S. Henson in 1847 and patented. Safety razor blades are usually made of razor steel, which is low chromium stainless steel that can be made extremely sharp but corrodes relatively easily. The earliest known razors are from the Bronze Age. Today, safety razors are less popular in usage among the younger generation due to the perceived high price compared to disposable razors. Safety razor day serves as a way to remedy that promoting this classic men's shaving tool now became popular with women's too. Safety razor day draws attention to the progression of shaving technology over the decades. This overview is crucial to appreciate and evaluate the products currently available to the market. Shaving is something almost every adult person has experienced at least once in their lifetime. Safety Razor Day can be considered a celebration of this millennia-old human tradition. Today is also commemorated as Skyborn Recognition Day, to honor services of all those amateur radio operators who work round the clock to submit information about any severe weather patterns, including tornadoes, storms, or strong winds. Such weather conditions could cause severe damage to people's lives and properties. A prior warning by a Skyborn volunteer helps lessen any casualties. These volunteers come from all walks of life and backgrounds. They are specially trained by the National Weather Service to be able to accurately report on weather conditions. So if your day's plans are depend on the weather outside, tune into radio to learn more about the weather patterns being reported by Skywarn volunteers. The first Skywarn Recognition Day was observed in 1999. It was created by the NWS and the American Radio Relay League. The two organizations decided that the day would be commemorated on the first Saturday of every December. NWS is an American governmental agency whose focus is to report on usual and unusual weather conditions. They issue warnings and emergencies if the weather is expected to take a turn for the worst. NWS, which is headquartered in Maryland, Washington, believes it is the responsibility to protect people from harm caused by adverse weather. The agency collects its information through more than 120 offices all over the country. The American Radio Relay League, ARRL, is another organization that helps NWS receive and report accurate weather conditions. Formed in 1914, it is the largest non-profit organization for amateur radio enthusiasts. The co-founders, Hiram Maxim and Clarence Tuska, were both associated with radio agency. Their interest in the field saw them coming together to create ARRL in order to give a chance to those who were not from the field but still wanted to contribute. The organization provides technical training, education, sponsorships, The organization provides technical training, education, sponsorships, and assistance to its members, many of whom have gone on to volunteer as Skyborn reporters for NWS. And ARRL membership is not limited to America, as more than 7,000 members of the total 161,000 members belong to other countries. The organization holds several conventions and publishes a special journal called QST. Every year, about 290,000 report on any weather irregularities. Such reports have worked to lessen the overall damage, allowing people and organizations to save money as well. Before a heavy storm hits, the local amateur radio reporters are noting the patterns and reporting them to the NSW. Their ham radio reports serve as a first line of defense against such weather patterns. You can find the spotter number by contacting your local warning coordination meteorologist. Said person can help you find the spotter information you are looking for. They can also inform you about any Skywarn classes taking place. Weather can be extremely unpredictable, which is why a daily weather forecast will be more accurate as opposed to the forecast that tells the conditions for coming months. If a weather forecast report turns out wrong, the people in the industry call it as a bust. The wrong information is called as a bust. Weather models created using computer algorithms can be wrong as they are simply a prediction of what could happen and they are not accurate at times. The rat race for getting the highest television rating points or clicks has led to many weather agencies wrongly predicting weather conditions as the bigger and badder the weather, the more people will engage with it. Today is also commemorated as Special Education Day in US to commemorate the signing of the Individuals and Disabilities Education Act into the law on this day in 1975, in short known as IDEA. IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, granted access to children with special needs to free and quality public education. The Act has been revised several times, but the crux of it remains the same and is the foundation for special education in the US. In support of this Act, many organizations pledge to provide good education to students with special needs. It all started in 1972 with the US District Court lawsuit Mills versus the Board of Education filed in the District of Columbia. The denial of publicly funded education for special children, including those with learning disabilities, funded education for special children, including those with learning disabilities, was ruled. So states receiving federal funds were required to provide full access to children with special needs. In 1986, the law was revised to include more support for parents and educators and to advance educational plans. In 1990, the name of this landmark act has changed to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or simply IDEA. Over the years, clauses have been added to the address issues and ensure that the standards of education for special children are on par with the overall education system. IDEA not only established the rights of children with learning disabilities, but also laid groundwork for teachers and families to work together for ensuring IDEA not only established the rights of children with less learning disabilities, but laid the groundwork of teachers and families to work together and ensure there are services and resources available for support. Special Education Day started in 2005 on IDEA's 30th anniversary. Walt Disney, Thomas Edison, and Albert Einstein are famous people who had learning disabilities and special educational needs. There is a difference between learning disabilities and intellectual disabilities. Special education laws provide mostly for primary and secondary school levels. Approximately 4 times as many as boys as girls are diagnosed with a learning disability. French physician Jean-Marc Gaspard Iter is considered the father of special education in the West. So with this, we shall conclude today's commemorations, and thank you everyone for joining. The feedback form is being shared in the form of polls. We request everyone to quickly attend to the feedback form. So the feedback form has been raised. We request everyone to quickly fill up the feedback form. And tomorrow we would be celebrating World Disability Day. If anyone is interested to make any presentations, you are welcome. So thank you everyone for joining us on this day. See you all tomorrow at the same time with the same link at 6 o'clock. Take care. Good night.